Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be able to join you all here today, and especially delighted to be able to introduce Ambassador Akramul Qader, with whom I've had the great privilege and honor of being able to work when I served in government, and we've also stayed in touch after I finished my term in U.S. government and have been able to stay in regular touch about Bangladesh, its successes, and its many challenges. So we're looking forward to hearing from him today. Let me give you a brief précis of his bio. Ambassador Qader is a career diplomat with the cabinet rank of state minister. He has served as the ambassador of Bangladesh to the United States since November 2009. In December 2010, he also assumed the role of ambassador to Mexico. So he is apparently dividing some of his time between us and Mexico. In previous roles, he served as Deputy Chief of Mission and Ambassador at the Embassy of Bangladesh in Brussels, Belgium, with concurrent accreditation to the European Commission, the Netherlands and Luxembourg, as well as Counselor and later Deputy Chief of Mission in the High Commission of Bangladesh in New Delhi, India. A very important relationship for Bangladesh. He was ambassador to Thailand previously, with concurrent accreditation to Cambodia from 1996 to April 1999, followed by serving as High Commissioner to South Africa, with concurrent accreditation as High Commissioner to Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, Swaziland, and Lesotho until 2002. Ambassador Qader, we are looking forward to hearing from you today. I expect we've got a very full house, so I expect there's probably going to be a pretty engaged discussion to follow, but please, I will turn the floor over to you, and we look forward to your remarks.
Thank you very much, Alisa. Basically, I have everything over here, whatever I would like to tell you, particularly about our country, the election mostly, the aftermath of election, and how we are doing.
Sir, if I can ask you to raise your voice up just a bit. I was in the back.
That is a
Thank
big
you.
problem. That is a big problem. Sorry, will it help?
No. So just if you could raise your help. Raise your voice.
Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can listen.
Yeah, we can.
You are hearing. Good. I have a very bad voice anyway. I thank the Rumi Forum at the very outset for holding this event today, and I'm honored that I'm the first one to be here in this building and in their first event that they are organizing. So that's indeed an honor, and I'm glad that you asked. Well, I would be engaging with you in this discussion and share my perspectives on Bangladesh socio-economic advancements as well as the challenges in the aftermath of the January 5 elections. I'd like to take this opportunity to specially thank Dr. Ali Sayers, a distinguished scholar of the Council of Foreign Relations and former Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Department of State in the Bureau of South Asia and Central Asia, for a generous and lively presence as a moderator in this event. Truly, Madam, your experience as a U.S. foreign policy practitioner and the scholarly debate that I'm confident you are going to stimulate today will add great value to this particular program. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure even before I have started speaking today, you have already got a perception about Bangladesh somewhere in your mind. I would not delve myself into the futile exercise of trying to explain how such cluster of thoughts and ideas are created and organized in someone's mind. No doubt, a psychologist would do possibly a much better job than the ambassador. As a layman, I would say it may have resulted from the accumulation of your experiences and interactions with Bangladesh, formally, informally, consciously, and also subconsciously. I hope today's interaction would help adding some additional nuances to your thought process and understanding about Bangladesh, its history, its culture and politics, and of course its current state of affairs and the future lying ahead, which is intertwined with the US interests in South Asia, in South Asian region. Let me begin with a hypothetical situation. Imagine placing roughly half of the United States population, around 160 million people, into an area the size of the state of Iowa or say Wisconsin. Ask them to maintain a growth in economy of around 6% for over a decade. A transparent and accountable governance system, and most importantly, hopes and aspirations among its people for sustained successes in future. This is not just a thought exercise. This is the reality of today's Bangladesh. At its birth, the then US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger called Bangladesh the place that is and always will be a basket case. Since gaining independence, however, the country's strides in human development made Bangladesh a fascinating case study for development experts and economists across the world. In a recent book on the comparative economic developments of India and its neighbors, Nobel laureate Professor Amartya Sen said, and I quote, "Bangladesh has overtaken India in terms of a wide range of basic social indicators. There are features of astonishing achievement in Bangladesh that cannot but excite interest, curiosity, and engagement." The same sentiment has been echoed by political leaders across the globe, including former US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton during her visit to Bangladesh in May 2012, when she said, "There is a tremendously positive path for this country. The changes, the economic growth, all of these are very encouraging. I am betting on Bangladesh, and the United States wants to be your partner." Only 4 decades separate Henry Kissinger from Hillary Clinton. And what a powerful statement Bangladesh has made to the world that time. Despite enormous changes, it traversed along quite successfully the difficult path from a basket case to becoming a model of development, a strong partner of the US, combating terrorism, promoter of regional integrity, protector of international peace and security through its flagship enterprise, peacekeeping operations with the United Nations, and so on. Indeed, there is more to Bangladesh than what first meets the eye. Perhaps even more surprising than the remarkable transformation Bangladesh has undergone during the last 4 decades is what Bangladesh has preserved throughout its journey to the modern day. Like many of the ancient civilizations in the world, freedom and independence have been integral part of Bangladesh's cultural and historical memories for centuries. As early as the 8th century, Bengal's legendary Pal dynasty was established democratically during a period of intense strife and chaos called Matsyanno, meaning a political order where the big fishes swallow small fishes. Desiring an end to the anarchy, a group of enlightened members of the region called Prakriti Punjo, an 8th century version of civil society, gathered and elected from among them Gopala, a man of insignificant birth, to lead Bengal out of instability. Gopala rose to the challenge, defeated Bengal's enemies, and created a prosperous and peaceful kingdom that lasted until 12th century. His courage as a common man devoted to protecting liberty and justice remained in the hearts of the Bangladeshi people long after the Pala dynasty ended. Bangladesh's liberation war of 1971 was yet another demonstration of the power of the common man to change the course of history. The statistics of Bangladesh's 9-month struggle against Pakistan are staggering when said aloud. 3 million Bengalis murdered, thousands of women raped, 10 million forced to leave their homeland, yet in spite of these seemingly insurmountable obstacles, it was the ordinary Bengali, from the valiant freedom fighters to the courageous mothers and sisters, who emerged stronger than ever before. I too, as a Bengali man working for the Pakistan Foreign Ministry as the liberation war broke out, had my own share of personal rebellion when escaping Pakistan through Afghanistan and India. As all of us were citizens of the new nation, it was our united struggle that ushered Bangladesh to both victory and sovereignty. In spite of our initial successes, the fight toward development and prosperity was only just the beginning. Many of our country's brightest minds had been lost to the war's senseless violence, which had also taken a heavy toll on the land and the lives of those who remained. Projections for Bangladesh's longevity were therefore mired in uncertainty. Could Bangladesh even survive? Looking back now, however, those predictions need not have been so apprehensive. Bangladesh has drawn on the foundational cultural values of humanism, inclusiveness, and internationalism to develop not only a rapidly growing economy, but also a popularly elected democratic government that honors the principles of nationalism, democracy, social justice, and secularism. In the socio-economic front, Bangladesh has experienced monumental progress since achieving independence 43 years ago. The economy has grown from GDP of US dollars 8.75 billion in 1971 to more than US dollars 116 billion today. Thanks to the liberal and pragmatic economic policies of the government of the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, over the last 5 years, we have reduced poverty by 10%, attained a consistent GDP growth rate of around 6%, enhanced GDP per capita by 65% to cross the US dollar 1,000 mark in 2013, reduced overall inflation from double digits to 7.5%, assisted employment of 7.5 million people in the private and 0.5 million in the public sectors, increased exports annually on an average of 19% since 2009, reaching US dollar 24 billion in 2013, and arranged overseas jobs for 2 million nationals. Testament to these robust economic gains, our foreign currency reserve also followed a high growth trajectory, exceeding for the first time US dollar 20 billion mark this April, despite many obstacles, including recent global economic meltdown. Encouraged by such resilient characters of the economy, the government could choose to take courageous decisions like building Padma multi-purpose bridge project solely on domestic finance. Longest of its type in Bangladesh, the bridge is expected to add greatly to the brisk economic run of the country by changing the economic landscape of the southwest region, linking it with the capital Dhaka. While speaking about Bangladesh's economic success stories, It is also critical to ascertain that the dividends of development have helped eradicating economic disparity and ensuring social justice. The positive social changes in Bangladesh's life, Bangladesh nationals' life, are indeed visible and also internationally acclaimed. Disease prevention and increased awareness of health and sanitation issues have raised the average life expectancy by more than 20 years since its independence. Literacy rates have also increased from the initial figure of 25% to more than 77% for men and 80% for women. By taking on these duties mostly of its own accord and without the extensive use of foreign aid, Bangladesh can rightly boast the successful completion of 5 out of the 8 Millennium Development Goals well before the deadline of 2015. There are more statistics and economic facts to add to the list. However, statistics do not always tell the human stories. I would like to emphasize here that it is primarily because of the government's commitments to social justice, equality of all individuals, and economic liberty, which worked as the key driving forces to drastically improve the basic conditions of its citizens from the ground up. It is important here to note that Bangladesh's economic relations with the foreign countries have changed its course considerably. From a predominantly aid recipient country at its birth, Bangladesh has successfully transformed itself to a trade and business dependent nation today. The last few years saw an amazing rise of trade volumes with its important trading partners and flow of significant foreign direct investments. Proudly, Bangladesh is no more at the receiving ends. Our trade and investment partners are interested to do business with us solely from profit motives. In plain and simple words, it is a mutually beneficiary business framework that dictates the terms. Let us, for example, take the case of Bangladesh's economic relations with the United States. The business partnership has sustained and grown because it yielded a win-win business proposition for all the actors, including exporters, importers, investors, and end-level customers. Signing the Trade and Investment Cooperation Forum Agreement in November 2013 ushered a new era of economic cooperation between the two countries. Historically, U.S. investments in Bangladesh have focused primarily on the energy and power sectors, covering roughly 80% of its portfolio. Chevron and ConocoPhillips are the two major players in the field. Alongside power and energy, US's business presence is also prominent in the financial sector, such as insurance, banks, and varied services. With a liberal investment climate, low cost of doing business, and a growing consumer market, returns on investments of US businesses in Bangladesh are high. No doubt, US companies and US government are happy with such high profit business environment, particularly at this trying time of slow economic growth in the USA. Bangladesh in turn encourages more flow of FDI to accelerate economic growth for fulfilling its dream of becoming a middle-income country by 2021. Indeed, a win-win business dynamics prevails. Sorry. it's not working. Give me some. It's kind of a torture. Huh? It works?
Yeah, but it's just for my camera.
Oh, for your camera. Never had been in a situation like this. I'm sorry. The United States is a major destination for products made in Bangladesh, receiving nearly a fourth of Bangladesh's total exports. 90% of those goods are textiles. Bangladesh is second only to China in exporting apparel to the United States. Indeed, ready-made garments export to the US market is playing a significant role in Bangladesh's economic development. Currently, the sector employs almost 4 million workers, 90% of whom are women. Thus, the sector contributes invaluably to Bangladesh's amazing success of women empowerment. But that's just for the story of the one side of the coin. On the other side is the account of US's benefits in the trade partnership. Apart from providing low-cost fashions and apparel solutions to the US consumers, Bangladesh's RMG is also a source of huge revenue for the US government. As the US tariff policy has marked apparel and textile products as sensitive to US market, Bangladeshi garments enter into the US market after paying an exceptionally high tariff, ranging from 8 to 32%. Let me give you a perspective. In 2013, Bangladesh exported worth US dollars 4.90 billion of ready-made garments to US market and paid a tariff of almost 828 million for just 4.90 billion. Whereas the UK, an advanced economy, paid as low as 200 million for its exports of about 48 billion. Ironically, while the US Congress consistently advocates for improved labor conditions in Bangladesh, it has always shied away from offering any tariff concessions to Bangladesh apparels. Should the US Congress offer duty-free access or alternatively tariff concessions, no doubt it would have given some much needed financial rooms for the industry to improve conditions of its workers. Sanchita B. Saxena of University of California, Berkeley, in an op-ed piece in New York Times titled American Tariffs, Bangladeshi Deaths in December 2012, aptly put in perspective this serious disconnect about US trade policies towards Bangladesh. Bangladesh understands the concerns expressed by our friends and well-wishers in the USA to ensure labor and safety standards in the RMG factories. That said, Bangladesh's RMG sector is still recovering from the shocks generated by Rana Plaza building collapse on April 2013. Tomorrow is the first anniversary of that collapse, and the fire in the Tazreen factory in November 2012. The US government's response of suspending Bangladesh's benefits as a developing country under the generalized system of preferences program has not helped address the issues underlying these deadly incidents. Because increased restrictions on exports and factory closures spurred by the GSP's suspension further endanger the livelihoods of the millions of garment factory workers in Bangladesh. It is in the best interest of bilateral trade relations and labor safety for the US to reinstate GSP privilege for Bangladesh Bangladeshi goods. As US-Bangladesh relations are progressing smoothly on all other fronts, as evident in the bilateral security dialogues which took place in Dhaka only yesterday, and high hopes for the upcoming TICFA Council meeting and partnership dialogues, the GSP would bring the two nations closer together within our existing mutually beneficial relationship. In light of these developments, Bangladesh has done its utmost to prevent such terrible accidents from ever happening again. In addition to compensating the victims' families, the government has addressed the shortcomings of existing workers' rights provisions and worked with utmost seriousness to strengthen the monitoring of factories to ensure the existing infrastructure meets international standards for workplace safety. Another welcome development is that this time the retailers have come up with some innovative ideas for a long-term improvement in factory conditions and labor rights. The Accord on Fire and Building Safety in Bangladesh that the European retailers signed on May 12, 2013 is first ever for any such agreement centering on compliance in Bangladesh's garments. Following that example, the North American retailers, led by leading players such as Gap, Walmart and Target, came up with the Alliance on Bangladesh's workers' safety. Never in Bangladesh garments industry history have we seen such an all-inclusive urge and initiatives of stakeholders such as buyers, manufacturers, governments, NGOs, media, international organizations like ILO, and common people for improvements of labor conditions. No doubt, we are on the right track, mapping the path forward to protect and empower our workers as well as building capacity and political will within the government for the most sustained solution to the workers' rights and safety issues. I would urge upon our international friends, including USA, to continue to constructively engage with us during this trying time. Let me now turn the page to a relatively difficult and a little contentious part of today's deliberation, the post-election political situation in Bangladesh. The government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina assumed office on 11th January 2014 for the second consecutive term following an electoral mandate in January 5th general elections. The election results have both domestic and international ramifications. Domestically, it is being widely viewed as a victory of secular democratic idea over the orthodox, extremist and reactionary forces in the country. As the leader of the largest political party in Bangladesh that led the country in its war of independence in 1971, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has always remained a staunch advocate for an inclusive and secular identity of Bangladesh. She fiercely advocated for upholding the Sufi Islam's true spirit of peace and tolerance. The BNP Jamaat-e-Islami alliance, on the contrary, remained dead against such liberal and tolerant ideas. For example, while the government always stood out to safeguard secularism and women empowerment in the country, the BNP and Jamaat-e-Islam, on the contrary, have endorsed almost unqualified support to the extremist Hefazat movement, which demanded, among other things, complete confinements of women in the society. Not only that, They went to the extent of orchestrating systematic and well-planned attacks on minorities to foment extremism and damage the liberal socio-cultural fabric of Bangladesh's society. Prime Minister Hasina, in her post-election speeches, reiterated her commitment to put the country on an irreversible track of social transformation, a society where plural and religiously tolerant values and ethos would sustain, grow, and flourish. The January 5th elections were conducted and monitored by the Independent Election Commission, a body that has managed more than 6,000 elections in the last 5 years with transparency and impartiality. As many of these elections were won by the opposition BNP, there can be no doubt that the Commission worked to ensure that the most recent parliamentary elections in January were free, fair, and non-violent as possible. Additionally, Bangladesh's 10th parliamentary elections were conducted in accordance with the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, in which the ideals of liberty and democracy have been firmly established in reflection with the core spirit of our War of Independence. As much as the document preserves the value of the Liberation War, the Constitution also provides for a peaceful transfer of power from one democratically elected government to another, in clearly stating that the Prime Minister and all cabinet members are permitted to remain in office until the elected successors assume office. The Constitution leaves no room for ambiguity and renders the idea of a caretaker government unnecessary and defunct. Therefore, Bangladesh's electoral procedures were aimed at allowing for a relatively peaceful transition between governments in much the same way that other functional democracies all around the world do. However, the BNP and the Jamaat-e-Islami-led alliance of 18 opposition parties could not accept the clear-cut provisions of the Constitution. As soon as the elections were announced, they vowed to boycott the elections and do everything possible to prevent them from occurring. These parties engaged openly in terrorism, arson, and other forms of indiscriminate and unprecedented violence against politicians, journalists, persecutors, and even innocent civilians, women and children. The elections thus brought about a clear struggle between orthodox, reactionary and extremist forces and the liberal secular force led by the Awami League. Thanks to the critical role played by the Election Commission and law enforcement in maintaining stability, elections were disrupted at only 3% of polling centers on January 5. The newly elected government in Bangladesh remains steadfast in its desire to have the opposition parties on board the political process and strengthening the democratic institutions. However, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina insists dialogue is only possible in the absence of violence. Already the government has been successful to attain the significant international support to this end. Echoing the sentiment of the government, the European Parliament has called on the BNP to renounce its alliance with the Jamaat-e-Islami. Despite its opposition to acts of violence within the political sphere, the government has no wish to restrict the opposition parties from exercising their rights to freedom of assembly, association, or expression, so long as these activities do not endanger any individual's life. Indeed, the government commends the BNP's decision to cease its inflammatory activities and participate in the subsequent upazila level local government elections and applauds their renewed support of the government's election mechanisms and their credibility. Additionally, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has renewed her commitment to engaging in constructive dialogue with the opposition parties who have renounced violence in order to make Parliament run as efficiently and effectively as possible. Another political development that has been met with some concerns and criticisms is the International Criminal Tribunal. The tribunals were enacted in response to overwhelming public demand to bring the perpetrators of unspeakably horrible crimes during the War of Liberation to justice. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina agreed with the public sentiment as she believed in the simple fact that peace could only exist when justice prevailed over impunity. Two independent tribunals, ICT-1 and ICT-2, were thus set up to try 1971 war criminals for internationally recognized war crimes in domestic trials. The government welcomed and incorporated suggestions from outside observers, including the US government, to ensure that the tribunals are international legal standards. Regrettably, the trials incited the ire of the Jamaat-e-Islami, who used indiscriminate violence as a political tool to prevent the trials from proceeding. Jamaat's demands, articulated as they were through wanton acts of terrorism, cannot be considered under any circumstances. From its earliest days, Bangladesh has been a pluralistic society, tolerant to all forms of diversity and cognizant of the importance of justice. It is unfortunate that the same forces who opposed the formation of Bangladesh around this liberal secular identity in 1971 are now hell-bent on turning the clock back to a misguided, repressive vision of Bangladeshi society and culture that never truly existed. In ensuring that the endeavors of the Awami League to preserve secularism are not in vain, we need the support and assistance of our fellow democratic states. We hope the successful implementation of the international criminal tribunals can set a precedent for other Muslim majority states and the world at large that justice, fairness, and equality can prevail regardless of states' past. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed much of Bangladesh's economic success can be accredited to the innovative and inclusive policies implemented by the popularly elected government led by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Reinforcing the principles of religious tolerance, the government restored the secular tenets of the nation's constitution and categorically refuses to condone any instance of religious extremism. The women's development policy is notable among Muslim majority countries for encouraging women to participate and lead national development efforts. Education policies for primary and secondary school students ensure that the school curricula is at the same consistent level of excellence as every school in the country. The government has also made sure it is held accountable for its decisions. In addition to protecting the full independence of the judiciary and re-establishing the National Human Rights Commission, the Right to Information Act allows individual citizens to receive the answers they desire from the elected officials. Civil society, which has been an integral part of the Bengali community since the Pallava dynasty, continues to flourish in raising awareness of public interest issues in Bangladesh. Thus, the government is committed to working with business, citizens and all other members of society to ensure that the country remains on the path to progress. I will end today with an excerpt from the personal notebook of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the father of the nation, and I quote, "As a man, what concerns mankind concerns me. As a Bengali, I am deeply involved in all that concerns Bengalis. This abiding involvement is born of and nourished by love, enduring love, which gives me meaning to my politics and to my very being." Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman dreamed of a Sonar Bangla, a happy and prosperous nation, free from poverty and hunger, and a society upholding the values of democracy, peace, secularism, and social justice. He sourced his dreams and inspirations from his courageous countrymen, for whom he had extraordinary love and caring. Today, we dream to graduate Bangladesh to middle-income country by 2021 with our socio-economic development, institutionalization of democracy, free media, strong civil society. I look forward to the days when Bangladesh will feature among the best of the best, and to help that dream come true, like Bangabandhu, I put my bet in the initiatives and achievements of the millions of Bengalis. I thank you all. Give me 10 minutes.
Complete tour of the horizon there of all the issues.
I'm sorry. I have time to wait.
Do you need more water?
I think I have to put water here now.
I think there's also copies of Ambassador Qader's speech available at the front table here for people who didn't have a copy. There are none left. Okay, so
My speech and embassy staff.
So any additional questions, perhaps, Neil will deal with that, because I know you had copies earlier. Now, I've been asked to lead a little bit of a discussion first, and then we'll open it up to Q&A from the audience. I think we've got some experts here on Bangladesh and some people from Bangladesh, so there's going to be a very high level of familiarity with many of the issues that you've raised today. If I could just briefly editorialize myself, Ambassador Qader, you've given a very comprehensive overview of issues facing Bangladesh today, as well as the recent post-election political situation, which I will ask you a little bit more about. I have long agreed that Bangladesh's remarkable accomplishments on the development front are something that are not as widely known, certainly in the United States, as they ought to be, and that Bangladesh should be much more held up as a model for other developing countries in terms of the policy choices that Bangladesh has made over the course of decades, and the way that Bangladesh has really been able to deliver services and quality of life improvements to its citizens, great benefits to its citizens. But I want to turn a little bit to ask you about some of the reasons and issues for which we've seen Bangladesh in the news over the course of the last year, and more intensively, actually, within the course of the last 6 months. I think it will not be a surprise to many. Ambassador Qader, you mentioned that this is, in fact, this week, tomorrow, will be the 1-year anniversary of the great tragedy at Rana Plaza, really the largest garment industry tragedy in world history. So it's quite something catastrophic for Bangladeshis and for people who have been involved and whose lives have been touched by this tragedy. So I did want to ask you to draw out a little bit more detail to let us all know about what more activity has been underway to try to make this industry a safer place for workers. We did see there have been a series of factory inspection reports that have been made public, for example, by the Accord. And some of those, I must say that some of those reports were a little bit surprising for me and perhaps for other people as well, in terms of some of the failings that the inspectors noticed. Now, this is nearly a year after Rana Plaza, and they noticed some problems there, like, for example, non-fire rated doors, insufficient sprinkler systems, exit problems, the type of thing that you would expect would be the kind of front line, let's fix it, let's make sure that our workplaces are safe. Ambassador, can you talk a little bit more about what's been happening? Obviously, this is a multi-party engagement. There's going to be the factories themselves, there's going to be unions involved, the role of the export associations, the Bangladesh government, as well as the international brands and retailers are all playing a role here. Can you talk a little bit more about what has been happening on the ground in Bangladesh with the training of inspectors and developing a cadre of inspectors to really get on top of this situation and make sure that safety situations don't slip through the cracks?
Yeah, thank you so very much, and thanks for the concern that you expressed about this particular issue of Rana Plaza. And prior to that, this incident of fire at the Tazreens, in which also more than 100 people died. In the Rana Plaza incident, we lost nearly 1,127 garment workers. It's a massive thing, and it's something of catastrophe which never has been seen in Bangladesh. Following the Rana Plaza incident, as you all know, not only the government of Bangladesh, the BGMEA, that is the organization dealing with the Garment Exporters Association and Manufacturers Association, the ILO, the US government, particularly the Department of Labor and others, they all got involved and tried to ensure that future does not look bleak for Bangladesh garment industry as well as the workers engaged in that industry. Now you must remember one thing, that Bangladesh has nearly more than 5,000 garment factories spread all over the country. Many of them, in fact, were started in the beginning of 80s. So these are pretty old, and many of them possibly remained uninspected, no doubt about it. The other reason why these things happen possibly is that, you know, the major buyers, they place orders to the garment factories, but then some of the factories which are not in fact able to complete the orders, what they do is they go for subcontracts. And subcontracts means that they are actually resorting to a kind of an action which provides opportunities for those garment factories who are not in line with major other garment factories, you know, for production of these items. The result is occasionally we have seen accidents taking place. Not only, you know, like the one that you have seen in Tajin, but we have seen many other small incidents of fire and so many things. So this time the effort was to ensure that recurrence of these things could be avoided. There are two issues involved. One is fire safety, the other is the building safety. Rana Plaza incident was relating to building safety things. So for Bangladesh's government's efforts actually were not enough, because we needed hundreds of inspectors to go around and evaluate everything, to go around and give proper certificates about the safety measures followed in those buildings. So what happened was that we had to recruit all these new inspectors, and that took some time. Otherwise, by this time possibly we would have completed recruitment of 200 inspectors. We have already recruited nearly 87, and European buyers as well are followed by the American buyers and other organizations. They also joined hands in our efforts in ensuring the safety of the workers. So what happened was, now that they have started sending inspectors out to all places. They have already visited several hundred, of these factories. Of course, although they have some misunderstanding also occasionally, because airport wants to pursue certain policies, and the alliance also has different notions about these safety things. So occasionally they don't look eye to eye on these issues. But I understand that they try to resolve those problems, and the work is going on well. And these things are also, the reports are also coming in the website about how much progress has been made about inspection. On the government part, what the government has done is to ensure that the labor rights are observed. We have made necessary amendments to the labor laws of the country, ensuring that unions could be formed in the factories without any interference from the owner side. The result is that we are now seeing nearly 140 unions already formed recently. So they are equally active. As we talk here now on this particular issue, in Bangladesh also a couple of meetings are going on, seminars are taking place on this anniversary of Rana Plaza catastrophe. As regards the compensation to the workers or the workers' relatives, nearly $28.5 million have already been distributed by the government of Bangladesh to the relations of the deceased, aside from treatment provided to the injured personnel, including some who were sent abroad for treatment. And yesterday, from the fund created with $40 million for assisting the workers, the first distribution started with a check of 50,000 taka to one of the relations of the deceased, and hopefully by tomorrow, over a system developed, I don't know how they do it, it's through cell phone that actually this transfer is affected. They are going to distribute this money to other affected people. The amount, of course, falls far short of the requirement, because the fund is for 40 million, but I believe that not more than 17 million has so far been collected in this fund. Government has been trying to do everything possible on its part, together with the assistance from the BGMA and other organizations. And I must say that both the Accord and Alliance are active in this regard. This is precisely short that I can say something. If you are interested about the labor rules and the amendments brought about and other details, we have already circulated a paper which will give you the details. We'll get the details from there.
If I could just quickly follow up, and then we'll open the floor to the audience. I gather we've got about 15 minutes left.
No, 15 minutes. I have 5 minutes left. I have got to go. The
Okay.
paper, I've distributed some papers which will take care of the questions of many other concerns.
Well, I'll just quickly follow up on this. You did mention that one of the big challenges is the issue of subcontracting, and many of the efforts that you spoke about in your initial remarks and then also in the follow-up have been very focused on the factories which are part of the global supply chain, supplying companies in Europe and companies in North America. But what about some of the factories that are outside of these global supply chains? What will be the inspection regime, or how to deal with this?
Very pertinent question. Very pertinent question. But initially, of course, the focus is on those factories which are providing garments mainly to the European and American suppliers. Of course, they will always be given priority because your buyers are involved, that's why. But following that, aside from the government, other organizations are also taking interest, like Bangladesh Indian University, BRAC and other nations. Some universities from here are also offering assistance. So they will also fan out to visit to inspect all these factories gradually. It will take time, as I said. It's not a question of 100 or 200. It's a question of more than 5,000 or 6,000 garment factories scattered all over the country.
Right, right.
But they definitely will be inspected. Some of them have already been closed down by the order of the government because they were not found safe so far structuring.
Okay. So let me open the floor to the audience. I know we've got several hands up already. Now we don't have a microphone for the audience. So what I'm going to do is call on people, and then I'm going to repeat the question so we can capture it on camera. Sir.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Ayers, for letting me answer the question. Just one quick question, Mr. Ambassador. Well, as a Bangladeshi, we are very proud of the human development and economic development that has been going on for decades. But at the same time, we are very, very afraid and shameful about the blatant human rights violation and lack of democracy that's going on in Bangladesh. Especially, you mentioned January 5th election. If you look at the election, it has been endorsed by countries like China, Russia, North Korea, and Egypt. Whereas you have countries like United States and European countries that didn't endorse the election because it lacked participation. So what's your take on that, sir? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. You see, when you say that you lack democracy or human rights, now what's your standard of democracy and what's your standard of human rights? That would be my question. 42% of the people of Bangladesh cast their votes during the last election.
It's not
Now,
true.
this has been, well, you may have one view, the other gentleman may have another view. But the fact of the matter is, 42% of the people did cast their vote, no doubt about it. And not that, you see, who stopped the people to come and cast their votes? Because the situation was created in Bangladesh through mayhem, the kind of arson, looting, killing of innocent people, men, women, and children, the way it was done in Bangladesh. That something has never been seen in Bangladesh before that. Trains were attacked, they were burned down, other means of transport on the streets were attacked, these were burned down, people were attacked, private and public properties were attacked, looted. Now, these are something that actually created a sense of fear in the minds of many to go to the polling booths. It's a fact. Everyone knows it and everyone has seen it. Even your TV has shown those things over here. The entire Western world has seen it. So you can't say that people didn't go there to cast their votes. What have you seen in the recent polls, say the Upajila elections? Tell me. People of Bangladesh are very democratic minded. They never shy away from these things. They love to cast their vote, they love to express their opinion, no doubt. And that's why you have seen such a turnout in the Upajila elections also. Then again, the matter doesn't end there. The Prime Minister has time and again stated that all right, we are open for dialogue. And we are open to dialogue and it can happen any time. But then the BNP, the major party, which didn't participate in the elections, they must jettison Jamaat and shun violence. Then only we can sit and have a dialogue. It's very clear. Let them do it and it will happen. Perfectly all right.
I think nobody has ever expected Bangladesh to have quiet politics, and we have seen some tumult over the course of the last 6 months. And there's several other hands up. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ambassador, the National Geographic magazine recently published a story concerning the Bangladesh shipbreaking industry. This article was published after 4 workers died at the Chittagong facility earlier this year, and last week an environmentalist, the husband of a Bangladesh environmental lawyer, was kidnapped. Given these problems, what steps is the Bangladesh government taking to bring its shipbreaking industry in line with the Hong Kong Convention on Ship Recycling?
Good question. The fellow who was kidnapped, well, he has since returned home. I don't know why he was kidnapped, but the police is investigating. I don't have any answers to that actually why it was done. A case has been lodged by Mrs. Rizwana, and well, let the people who are involved in this matter, let them resolve the issue also, I don't know that. About the accidents taking place in the shipbreaking industries, well, I must confess that this is not new. It is not the first time that only 4 people died. Earlier also there have been accidents. It happens particularly when they break the ship and when there is an explosion inside for some reason or other. Government has been taking steps, and recently I believe they have taken very stringent steps, including enacting new laws to ensure that these accidents could be avoided. They are taking certain other measures also to punish those who don't follow the government instructions in regard to braking, in regard to ship breaking. I don't have the details unfortunately with me because I am not prepared for ship breaking. There are so many things happening in the country, and well, your poor ambassador unfortunately cannot answer to each and every one.
One more question, sir? You had your hand up before.
Mr. Ambassador,
Yes.
as you said that you're fair free election, I mean, let me touch another side. That the newspaper was closed, shut down. The editor Mahmoud Rahman in the jail. TV channel is shut down without any due process. Then you have a human rights organization that reported that there are lots of people die in Shapla Chotto, and you answered that to put him in jail. So I mean, what kind of progress is that? I mean, what do you think is progress? I mean, people, more than 300 people plus disappear from the street, and you said that a lot of violence. I agree with you that a lot of violence. Who is responsible to control the violence, put the perpetrator in the jail? The government. And you have, I mean, to your fair election, you have an election that's more than half candidate, 100 out of 300, 152 was not been elected. There is no opposition there. And you have a parliament. There is a domestic opposition party who take part on the government cabinet. And I think that's the history. Ever been in history, in the history of democracy.
It is present, it's not history. Because they are there in the parliament. They can't say it's history. It's not part of history. Now you said that more than 300 people disappeared from the streets that night. Now who gave you the figure? Where did you get this figure?
Bangladesh national papers said.
National papers never said it. Mr. Mahmoud Rahman has been sent to jail. Do you know the reason why he has been sent to jail?
The government did not say that.
No, I'm just coming.
Officially,
let me answer your question. Said that he has been sent to jail. He has been sent to jail, perfectly all right. The reason being that, well, he did something which possibly will not be allowed in any country, and these are not covered by the ethics of journalism. Number one is, he said, and that particular TV station showed it on TV, that they lined up several dead bodies saying that so many people died and these are the dead bodies. Where the dead bodies came from, they took those pictures from another countries happening. And then it was a photoshopping. Now that kind of journalism can't be allowed and must not be allowed.
Listen, that's not government charge said though.
That is the reason why.
That's not government. 6 months, over than 6 months without any charge. He has been detained. and been, integrated without any charge.
Well,
That's a court record. You cannot manifest the court record.
Whether there is
That's
a
the
charge
court
or
record.
not, but as far as
Still,
I
he has no charge
remember,
in all those things.
well, it is the court who will decide about that.
Yeah,
I
but there
can't
is no
say that.
charge. You saying, what are you saying? It's not, there is no charge.
All right.
Charge in the written paper, Mr. Ambassador. It's a court document in written paper. No newspaper ever said that he had been charged.
Well, this is the
6
allegation.
men.
This is the
Well,
allegation, and of course, the formal. I'm not sure about whether the formal.
Let me
charges
quote-
have been
let me quote let me quote the New Age English Daily News editor said in the talk show that I do not know about the TV channel banned up. I do not know publishing live picture from the event where the manufacturing Photoshop and everything comes from. Prosecute them. Put them on the trial.
They all will be prosecuted, whosoever is responsible for that. Don't worry about it. Because,
Right.
you see, you can't say that 300 people disappeared and 60 people were killed. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? Nobody has come up with the proof saying that, all right, this is the list of the people who got killed there. Show me a list.
He said
Yeah.
60 people died and government should.
You say, you can raise so many things here, you can say, because I'm not here to pick up a quarrel with you.
Canada,
My-
he have put the list up on the.
Sir?
on the-
No list has been given.
Sir, if I
Let
could
us
just- if
show
I
the
could just
list.
ask, I
Show the list, send it there. Send it to the human rights organizations. You have so many human rights organizations all over the world.
This is actually an
Sorry,
incredibly.
I
no,
have to finish.
No, it's very important. I think this is an incredibly important conversation for Bangladeshis to be having, because there are serious concerns from people in Bangladesh about what's taking place politically and free and fair due process questions. But in the interests of this forum, we are now out of time. I would definitely encourage you to speak with Ambassador Qader afterwards. I think there are other people here today who probably would like to speak personally with you as well. But let me say this. I had the great pleasure to get to know Bangladesh from 2010 forward. I appreciate that many people have had a long time engagement with the country, if not for their entire lives. And there are very deeply held beliefs. And frankly, it's a very, very deeply divided partisan country politically. So it's certainly the case. I mean, I think what we're seeing here is both a reflection of very intensely held political beliefs and also concern about some very tough politics that's been unfolding over the course of the last year. I can't speak much more to that, given that I'm not Bangladeshi, but I think these are incredibly important issues for Bangladeshis to be talking about together and to have a really sort of inclusive dialogue about all those tough issues. So let me do this. I know that our time is up here at the Rumi Forum. I'm going to ask everybody to please thank Ambassador Qader for coming here today and sharing your thoughts with us. And I would also say to people who have continued questions and comments, and I can tell that there are many, I know there's going to be a little bit of an informal session now to follow. Thank you very much.
Could you please introduce yourself?
I'm sorry? Thank you,
Also,
Ambassador
thank you
Qader.
very much. Thank you very much, and thank you very much. Such a nice audience.